And just like the last episode, I have an amazing guest with me, and I will have her introduce herself a little bit. But before we get her to do that, I will say that she is an experienced buyer's advocate with a background across property management, sales, and advisory, giving her a full 360 view of the property journey, known for helping clients make smarter, more strategic property decisions beyond just the purchase. Mel, do you want to take it away and introduce yourself? Who are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Nadia. Big wrap up there. Thank you. I have been in the Melbourne property industry since 1997.
Yep.
So coming up to nearly 30 years, which is really hard to say. I don't feel like I'm that old. And did start at the bottom. So not I can't say it's the bottom. Sorry to all real estate receptionists out there. But back in 1997, it wasn't that easy to get a job. I just moved to Melbourne. I was applying for literally every job in the newspaper because there wasn't any internet back then, for a reception type role, and I landed one in a real estate in Brunswick Street, Fitzroy.
Yep.
And it was a great place to start. They were very systemised in how they operated their business. So being in that office and learning systems and procedures really helped me set up for my entire career. From there, as you do, receptionist to property management very quickly because the property manager left, and just loved it. So went from being a property manager to owning my own business relatively quickly, only a couple of years into the industry. And from there, we were doing the buyers and vendors advocacy along with the property management because it just went really well hand in hand for our investors.
And how do you feel that shaped the way you deal with clients?
I think overall, like from knowing property management inside and out, I've done many years in property management and seeing a lot of people buy not great properties as investments, getting really bad advice. It's really helped me be able to see what properties do well as investments from a renting point of view as well as an asset growth point of view. So buying for investors, we can do really easy knowing what is going to be good, but also buying for clients like first home buyers who need that first home to be something that is going to appreciate in value. Yeah. If a first home buyer buys a property that doesn't appreciate in value, it's really hard for them to do that next step when they get a partner and kids and those sorts of things to jump into that next property purchase.
How can you tell the difference between a property that's going to appreciate and one that's not?
We look at the history. So there's a lot of data out there for properties, and there's a lot more data for people in the industry because we pay for services to show us more data. But generally the history of a property will repeat itself, and properties will appreciate in price, again, generally if they have a land content. So apartments have an air content, not a land content. And so they don't really go up in price. And you can look at all the data. Like I've seen some advocates out there recently saying the next big jump is going to be apartments in the city. Yeah. I don't know. I hope that people do their research before they just take that advice off TikTok, because I just can't see how that's ever going to happen because it hasn't happened. Most people who have purchased apartments, and particularly the newer build apartments, they've actually gone backwards in price, not forwards in price. And it's really devastating when they think, I can buy a property and it's going to appreciate in value, and it doesn't. Yeah. Because not all properties do.
The more you know about property. And when most buyers focus on price and location, you emphasize understanding, I guess, the full life cycle behind the property investment from acquisition to long-term performance. What do you think most buyers are missing when they purchase property?
I think a lot of people and whether this is an investment purchase or an own home purchase, a lot of people get too tied up in the emotion around it. Yeah. So that could be from finding the property. Like a lot of people get tied up with the fresh paint job, the nice light fittings, the perfect furniture. Yeah. They get I call it Instagrammable. They get, particularly again going to the first home buyers. But you've got to see past that. A lot of good value is bought in properties that need some work done to it, and it doesn't have to be major works. Yeah. Like we look at it and know the client's capability of being able to do major works, whether that's organising trades or us helping them project manage, but you've got to want to do that type of thing. So if a property has, a tenant in it who's a bit messy, it's often overlooked by purchasers. Yeah. But the person who can negotiate the right price to buy it still subject to vacant possession can do that little bit of work to add that value. Same for first home buyers. If you can buy something that you can add value to over time that you're there, that's going to help you increase your value of your asset so you can jump into that next property a little easier.
Wow. And at what point should buyers start thinking beyond just getting into the market?
I mean, getting into the market is obviously the step that everyone wants to do. They want to own a property, but you've really got to do your homework before doing that.
Yeah.
Know why you're buying the property. Is it an investment that you want capital appreciation on, or is it an investment that you want the return on? Because they don't often come hand in hand, particularly in the major capital cities.
Yeah.
You are more looking at an asset growth within a city rather than that return on the rental income, because the return on the rental income doesn't generally give you a lot when you're buying in a city. So knowing that to move forward, doing your research, having your team around you. Obviously, us as buyers advocates can help clients know what price to pay, help them to successfully bid at auction or negotiate a sale, having an accountant, having a good conveyancer, knowing the depreciation that you can get out of a property if you're an investor. All of those sort of things are really great to make sure your team surrounding you is the right team. And the right team is someone who's going to advise you on a property for you, not for them. So there's property advocates and there's property spruikers. And a lot of them are getting paid by the developers. So if you're not paying someone for the advice, you've got to wonder who is.
Yeah. Have you ever straight up just been to someone like, hey, this isn't a good idea, and they've gone ahead anyway and come back to you and they've gone, you were right?
Yeah, it unfortunately happens a lot.
Really?
And even as a property manager, someone would bring me a property to manage and they're like, oh, so excited because they've bought it off the plan and they've got their first inspection coming up, and we go with them to do to look at the defects and so forth to help them out with that. And we go in and they're instantly disappointed because they've bought it off the plan. They don't understand the sizing, and it's always so much tinier than what they thought it was going to be. Like some properties, how do you even fit a couch in here?
Yeah.
It's a living space and a kitchen all in one. You're lucky if you can get a 2-seater couch with enough room to have a telly in front of it, let alone somewhere to eat. You're doing everything on that couch because it's so tiny. And I always ask, well, how did you come to buy this property? And, back in the day, my financial advisor told me, or I got this property plan from this property guru, and again, unfortunately, they're paid by the developer. And it's a lot of money that developers pay people to sell these properties off the plan. So, they're going hard to get you to buy it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they've been paid. But, 5, 10 years, 20 years down the track when you go to sell, you've lost a lot of money.
Yeah. And you think you've had a steal in the beginning.
Well, whether you think you have a steal or you've just got into the property market, it's amazing the amount of people that think any property is a good property. Any property is going to grow in value.
Yeah.
When it's just not the case.
See, for me, I'd probably be in that bubble of, as long as you have a property, you can make it work. But
well, you see first home buyers do it all the time. They buy a 1-bedroom apartment in Chapel Street or Swan Street in Richmond, or and it's fancy. It's lovely. The property's got a gym. It's got access to a pool. The property's nice, looks nice and new, but they don't appreciate in value.
Yeah.
They're paying really high body corporate fees or owners corporation fees to maintain all of those facilities. And the property looks fantastic. It's great to take photos, as I said, and pop it onto Instagram. But when they go to sell in 5 to 10 years, it won't be really for any more, and hopefully not less, but a lot of the times it is less than what they've purchased for. So they may as well have just rented and bought something perhaps a little bit further out of the city to rent to somebody else with the money that they've got, so that can grow in value.
And you mentioned a little earlier about emotions and buying with emotions. How do you help clients remove emotions from and focus on the strategy?
I think that buying property is going to be emotional.
Yeah.
We can't remove that, but we can help them manage it. So going in with a lot more clearer plan with a lot more, strategically focused on how you're going to buy a property can just help keep those emotions in check a little bit. Having someone to lean on who, knows what they're doing can just help you not get so emotional. Like we've seen people bid at auction, a husband and wife bid against each other because they didn't have a clear plan going in bidding at the auction.
Okay.
One of them's put their hand up and then the other one's got excited and put their hand up as well. And so, they've just jumped themselves up $10,000 without even thinking that, oh, that was my husband who was the lower bid. Like just bidding at auction is nerve-wracking, whether you're buying your own home or an investment. It's you're on stage, everybody's watching you to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And then you also have the fear of missing out. So you go above your budget, and again, that emotion drives it. So many times you've seen, again, a couple where they've stopped bidding, they've clearly got to their budget, but they don't want to miss out. And the wife's going, stop it. Or she's going, no, I want this house. And so, then they overpay what they should have perhaps paid for the property too. So we help all of those things.
And what's kind of the advice you would give in that situation?
Use a buyer's advocate to bid for you. Like there's so many services that a buyer's advocate offers.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the whole service of finding and going right through to settlement. It can just be bidding for you at auction. So we've got a service that the client has identified and then we'll go and inspect it. We'll give them a report on the value and then we'll come to the price that is their maximum and then we'll go and bid for them on auction day. And so the maximum is the maximum. But we're also reading the crowd. So if we know we're coming up against somebody else who we're pretty sure that they're at the end of their tether with their budget, we can ring the client and say, look, maybe another $5,000 and you'll get it, because we feel like they're at the end of their budget. And that's happened many times as well.
And more often than not, do people just say, yeah, go for it?
Sometimes it depends how much they want the property too.
Yeah.
It's really an individual case.
Do you deal with a lot of investors?
We do deal with quite a number of investors, although right now we're in a bit of a not quite sure what's happening with regards to the budget. So the budget's obviously just been handed down but hasn't come into place securely yet until July. It's a bit of a funny space for investors right now, depending on their reasoning and why they want to buy a property. Yeah. So it's really a lot of people are just sitting back and waiting until the budget's handed down so we know exactly where we sit with that.
Many buyers overlook financial factors that impact performance, including cash flow, tax position, and depreciation. Do you have those conversations with your clients about depreciation, and at what point do you have those conversations?
Absolutely. Like we're talking to them about all of those things from the start, and again, it's depending if it's an investor or an owner occupier that's buying the property. And sometimes we're buying a property for them to move into now, but with the view that it will become an investment property down the track. So we're having those conversations all of the time. It's also an important conversation that I hope many property managers are having with their rental providers, because they don't know what they don't know. And we're also surrounding people with a good team. So when we're talking to a client, do you have a good accountant? Do you have a good financial planner? Do you have a good conveyancer? Do you have someone to do your depreciation schedule? All of those things, we're making sure we're ticking those boxes and introducing them to people when they don't have them, because the team is so important to get right from the start.
And what are some financial blind spots, I guess, people then miss as well?
With buying properties, I think not looking at the owner's corporation. Like a lot of people don't look at the sales contract. Surprisingly, they don't send their sales contract to their conveyancer because they're worried the conveyancer is going to charge them. For if they do charge them, and a lot don't, to review contracts. Certainly the ones that we work with for our clients, they will do a review of a contract for us. But that's also after we've had a look at it for them too. So we can really pinpoint what's going on. If you're buying a property that is in an owner's corporation, what are the issues there? You've got to make sure that you know what the ongoing fees are. Are there any special levies coming up? Are there major works that they're talking about? A lot of cladding issues. A lot of the bigger properties have got loans against them, so they could fix the properties. You've got to know all of those items before you go into it. A building inspection's another really good one, because that gives you a plan going forward to know what sort of maintenance that you should be putting into place and if you should be buying the property at all. Like we've discovered some yellow mold underneath a lot of properties recently, and that is caused by some water issues. Do we want to take that on? Do we want to deal with the mold, but also deal with the cause of the mold? And then that's up to the client to choose.
Do people usually want to deal with that sort of stuff, or they?
When it's an investment, no.
Yeah.
We don't need to. We can just buy the next property.
Yeah.
If it's an own home, they will choose, this is the perfect home for us. It's the location. It's exactly the floor plan we've got. It's hard to get a perfect home. It's hard to get the perfect property. I talk about a lot of perfection getting in the way of progress.
Yeah.
So, look beyond what you need to. But if you've got the perfect home and it's got some issues around the build, know what you've got to do to fix those.
Yeah.
It's about going into it with your eyes wide open, really.
Do you find that people don't?
Yeah, because they don't get building inspections. They don't get someone to review their contract. They don't engage an advocate to help them with knowing the price of a property, and all of those things can certainly cause issues for them.
Do you think that people don't know that they can engage an advocate, or that?
Yeah, look, with all of that, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's really doing the research, and it's so easy to do the research now. As I mentioned before, when I first got into the industry, there was no internet.
Yeah.
My first boss was the only one that had the internet in her office, and so if we wanted to do any email or check the website, we had to go into her office and get permission to do it.
Oh, wow.
We couldn't ring mobile phones. We had to go into the other boss's office and ring a mobile phone from a fax machine because it just wasn't something that we did.
Yeah.
So many changes have happened. Certainly in my time frame in real estate, but going forward with AI, there's some major changes still to come.
Are you using AI at the moment?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't not.
No, you fall behind if you don't.
Yeah.
And at what point in the buying journey do you start discussing things like cash flow and tax implications?
Again, these are conversations we have at the start.
Yeah.
And making sure they're surrounded again by the right people. Tax implications isn't our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We really need them to be linked in with a good accountant or financial planner for those sorts of things.
As AI increases, people seek out that human interaction more and more as well.
And you can't replace the experience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new advocates in the market now, which is great, but a lot of it is all just learnt not by being in the field.
Yeah.
I've been a sales agent, a property manager. I help buy, I help sell. Like I've done all facets of Melbourne real estate for nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
1 year and no sales experience at all, or no real estate experience at all. You've got to start somewhere, but start with someone who's got some experience so you can learn, because you can't learn it all off the computer.
No, and especially with that experience, like you've been through all the elements, so you know all those touch points as well. Do you think investors are educated enough on opportunities like depreciation?
No. Again, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
So if they're surrounding themselves with the right team, hopefully that team is going to educate them on depreciation, because it is important.
And I was mentioning to you earlier as well that 70% of investors aren't aware or don't know about depreciation as well.
That stat blows my mind. I can't believe it's 70%.
Right?
It's huge. Because most investors have their properties managed by a property manager. I don't know what the percentage of that is anymore. It's certainly more than, I would say, more have them managed by a professional property manager.
Yeah.
And whether they're not reading the emails that go out or, that sort of thing. But certainly, that's a crazy stat. It's a lot. It's
a big amount. Have you seen cases where understanding depreciation actually changes the numbers or the decision?
Yeah, definitely. It depends, again, on what the client's looking for their long-term investment strategy. But if they've already got an investment property, there's no harm in inquiring, is a depreciation schedule going to benefit me or not? If it's a no, oh well, move on. If it's a yes, which more likely it is going to be, and particularly for those buying in the new builds, I think that it's definitely something that they should seek advice on, because, for the cost of it, to get a depreciation schedule that is a tax deductible cost as well, it could help just put more money in your pocket at the end of the day, and the government doesn't spend it that well to give it to them.
No. And realistically, they should be thinking about depreciation before the purchase, during or after settlement.
Well, before the purchase, it's part of the consideration on what property that they're buying. But certainly as they purchase and settle, that's something that they should get into their toolkit as soon as possible. But before tax year is always a good time. But I appreciate that is also a super busy time for you guys, because everybody wants to, they go, oh my God, I've got to do this before tax. So just get it done as soon as you think about it. If you've owned the property, you've got a couple of years that you can backdate the depreciation for. So just get it done as soon as you know about it, essentially.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And what's the biggest difference between how first home buyers and investors approach property?
First home buyers quite often approach property more with their heart.
Yep.
And an investor, hopefully, is approaching it more with their head, although I have seen it flip around as well.
Yeah.
Essentially, they both should be buying for capital growth.
Yep.
So it shouldn't be any different. But as a first home buyer, it's a property that you want to live in. So you've also got to know that property is going to be comfortable for you to live in.
Yeah.
You don't want to live in something you don't want to live in, right? So it's a little bit different that way. Although buying as an investor, you've got to look at the property being not just investment quality stock.
Yep.
So if you buy something that a homeowner is going to want to buy down the track, then you're widening your reach of the people who will pay more for your property.
Yeah.
If you buy a property that is just for an investor now, it is always going to be just for an investor down the track. People aren't going to want to live there. And the people living there are what really drives the prices up, because it's the emotional purchase. The investor purchases on the dollars and on what makes sense.
And besides doing the research beforehand, what other piece of advice would you give to someone coming into the market in 2026? I
think, we've touched on it. We just mentioned the research.
Yep.
It's so important. We see so many people buy at auction on the day they see it. It's amazing to me how many times that happens. Surrounding yourself with a great team. Whether you're an investor or an owner-occupier, you still need the great team.
Yep.
Because buying a property is usually one of the biggest transactions that people are going to do in their life. So get it right from the start.
Winning deals is about more than just price. Strategy, positioning, and understanding value all play a role. What actually wins a deal in today's market?
I would have to say preparation. The winning buyer is not always the highest bidder. If you're going into an auction scenario, for example, and there's nobody bidding, if you don't bid either, the property will just be passed in, and then they're negotiating with everybody who is interested. If you bid and the property's passed down to you, you are the one that they will negotiate with, and they won't negotiate with anybody else unless you can't come to a deal. Having someone outside watching what the other people are doing as well, like they'll whip you inside and into a room. You can't see who else is out there if there is anybody else out there. So, a lot of strategies around the fear of missing out and talking to you about the buyer that might come in. Are they actually there? You really got to be prepared and know your stuff when you're going in to negotiate a property with trained professionals. A real estate agent is a trained professional in negotiating to get the best price out of you. Are you up for the task, is what I would ask.
And how do buyers lose opportunities without realizing it?
I think a lot of them will focus on the presentation. And so if you go into a property that maybe needs a paint job, maybe has a tenant in there that's a bit messy, and then think, oh, I don't think I like this property. When you can't see past those things is when you can really miss out on some good opportunities.
And have you seen situations where the property's true value isn't obvious at first glance?
Yeah, definitely. And it's those propities. It's a property in a great location, but it's a bit messy and needs a paint job on the outside. It's a bit tired. Those sorts of things are where you really see people miss out on some opportunities.
It's hard. What do you do in those situations?
Well, we just talk them through it. Like, can you imagine... actually AI. So you take a photo of the property and you say, let's put a fence in front of this. Let's paint this red part out to monument grey, and show us what that looks like. And then you show the client, this is what it could look like, if you did these small changes. And we did this for my son's property recently. He's just gone into his very first home earlier this year with his lovely partner, Hannah, and they've done a great job in what they've purchased because it's something that they can add value to over time to help increase the value of their asset, which is great. You know, a fence, a bit of paint on the outside, you know, some air conditioners and some new lights, and you know, it's a great property that they've gone into.
Wow. Well, I know I have learnt a lot sitting with you today, and I hope that everyone listening in has also had the same experience as me. But we are kind of running a bit tight on time. We're reaching the end, and we're up to my favourite segment of TDA Talks, and that is TDA Confessionals. So this is the end of the episode. Every episode we have our lovely guest give a little professional confession and take it away.
If my family are listening to this, they've already heard the story, but it would probably be my Mother of the Year award. I started in business when my son was about 5 months old.
Yep.
And before he could walk, you know, I was listing properties for rent, and he came everywhere with me. He was in the pram for inspections. He was on my hip for walkthroughs. Like it worked, and it was great that people accepted that. And honestly, for people who didn't accept it, they weren't my type of client anyway, so that was okay.
Yeah.
We were out doing an entry condition report for this big property, and he was just sitting on the floor in the big living space, waiting for me to finish off the video. And I went out the front door and closed it to do the video and locked him inside with the keys and my phone, because back then the phones didn't have videos in them, or not good enough ones. So that was a bit of a situation where I'm walking around the outside of this house, and the only windows to break to get in are massive, huge windows. So I'm walking around tapping on the window with a brick thinking, oh God, which one am I going to break? Saying, it's okay, Jackson, you'll be fine. He's just sitting there happy as Larry is a great little kid. And I found a bathroom window to break, and I clambered in there.
Oh my God.
And rescued him. So that's probably, I guess, one of my professional confessions.
Oh God. Well, it's definitely a story to tell.
Luckily, he was just happily playing with his toys. It wasn't an issue for him. He had no clue what was going on at all.
No, it's probably like, why is Mum crying right now?
I was a big, very much panicking.
Well, thank you, Mel, for coming in. It was lovely chatting to you today.
Thanks, Nadia. You too. I really appreciate the opportunity.
It's good to have some female energy in here as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.